E3 to A7.
He usually wins.
Use this to find length of WX or YZ.
Yeah, I like to tutor a lot because it's one of the more productive things that I do. And it gives me a chance to meet people and just to help other people. I think I've had more than 200 students that I've tutored over the years. That was over about 12 years of tutoring.
On the graph on the left page, less than or equal to 1 over x. Okay, do you agree that that's always true? Yeah.
He helped me with pre-cal a great deal. And before Michael, I would just sit at home and struggle with the problems, trying to work it out myself, and usually end up frustrated late at night going to bed. So now, when I get stuck, I have someone I can go to, and he helps me work through it. Also helps the frustration level as well. So I feel smart again.
Probably the second before.
With Michael being in a wheelchair, it had no effect on me choosing him or not. He was, wheelchair or not, I mean, a great person is a great person. It's like a human calculator. You can sit there and figure out everything in his head. It's amazing.
So A equals negative B. If you use the slant fraction line,
46 multiplied by 50.
That's too easy, 2300. 63 times 58. 3480, 3630, 3654. Partly because it was difficult for me to move my hands, I learned many tricks to do calculations without a calculator. And that was really good practice, so now I can do many math problems in my head.
I have Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy, a disease that I was born with. Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy is a disease that affects the muscles. It gradually weakens all the muscles. So when I was very small, I had trouble walking and running, and that was the first hint that something was wrong with me. And as I grew older, it became more difficult to walk, and I had to start using a wheelchair when I was in 5th grade. Eventually, my hands became too weak to operate the wheelchair, and eventually my breathing muscles became affected. So now I have to use a ventilator all the time to breathe. Muscular dystrophy is a progressive disease, so all the time I get weaker. I can still move one finger. It's important for me to be able to move my finger, because if I couldn't, I wouldn't be able to use the computer. And I spend most of my day at the computer. I'm afraid that in a year or two, I might not be able to use the computer. And then I'll get really bored, and I guess I'll have to read more books. Mom? Mom, can you turn the pages?
Let's see.
I like to read books, but I can't turn the pages by myself, so I'd have to have someone else turn pages for me. I used to read more, and I would read 3 or 4 books at one time, so I could read all the pages and then ask someone to turn all the pages at once, so they wouldn't have to. So they don't have to come so often to turn pages. After high school, I studied first in Missouri for my bachelor's in special education. And then when we moved to Texas, I started a master's degree in math at PWU. And when I graduated, I started going to classes at UNT for my PhD, but then I ran out of energy, so I quit. And I guess about a semester after I quit the PhD program, I just got the idea that maybe I could teach a class. So I went to UNT and talked to the dean of the math department and applied for a teaching job, and it was really amazing to me that he agreed to give me a job teaching a class. And I taught one class for 2 semesters at UNT. But then that became too difficult, so now I just tutor.
That's okay.
He saves his money from tutoring, and so he always has a project in mind. And of course, he wants me to be able to fulfill that project that he has. Sometimes his expectations are too high. Like right now, he wants me to set up a water collection system around our house, and he doesn't quite understand that I can't figure out how to do it, or that I could even take all the time to do it. He's very hopeful. You know, he always thinks that there's nothing that he can't, and he needs somebody to help him to carry them out. But he's also hopeful for other people that, you know, that they'll be able to do it. He doesn't say this is an impossibility. He's determined. He's creative. He sees everything as possible to do.
I guess what I enjoy most is just being around my friends, just a few people at a time, maybe going for walks or going to movies or concerts or going out to eat. There's Franklin, who helps my mother take care of me. He's fun to talk with, and we go on walks to UNT or to garage sales.
You know, we could stop by Suko Thai for your lunch.
I think maybe it's our battery charger, but I did bring
Really?
screwdrivers and yep,
Oh, if one of these fuses is good.
it's one of them.
Do you have the screwdriver with you?
It probably is the charger.
I think that one's working.
I was going to see if there's a fuse. You're interested?
Yeah, I like going to garage sales a lot. Every weekend that we can, when the weather is good.
or when I'm not tutoring, we go to garage sales that are close by. And I like them because you can always see unusual things. I like looking for CDs. Yeah, it doesn't matter if I buy anything. It's just a chance to enjoy the sunshine and get out of my room for a while.
He really has a sense of humor, and he has this marvelous expression in his face, and his interests are very eclectic and diverse, and he's just a lot of fun to be around, I think. Michael always has crazy ideas. There's this sort of weird contraption he had me build with these mirrors, and he had this good idea last fall that he could reduce his energy consumption, you know, reduce their electric bill in the winter by making this mirror contraption that would reflect the sun into his room to warm his room. And so he had me build this thing out of just random parts, you know, in these mirrors, and it actually didn't work very well because of the way the house is oriented, you know, and the sun wouldn't quite reflect in, but it was really a funny contraption. And he had this whole elaborate design about how it could be motorized, you know, and turn, you know, as the earth turned to get the angle just right. It's always an adventure. I never know what I'm going to be doing when I come over, you know. If maybe I'm trying out some crazy recipe that he has, or trying out some crazy idea that he has. But he's a very active mind, that's for sure. Yes, I do his treatments. Yeah, and that's about 45 minutes of, you know, we have to get him in bed and we have to hook him up to these various machines and clear out his lungs and things. And during that time, it's kind of a downtime for me, you know, and for him too.
Well, I do the treatments 4 times a day, and I started doing a similar treatment about 5 years ago. And when I first started, I didn't like it at all, because the machine creates a lot of pressure. So it forces me to take a really deep breath, and I wasn't used to it. But now that I'm used to it, it doesn't bother me at all. And after the treatment, I feel a lot better. It's a lot easier to breathe, so I kind of like it.
Of course, sometimes I try to imagine what would it be like to be in his situation, and it's very hard to imagine. You know, especially the idea that, you know, he could die at any time, or he could have a long and painful sort of decline. I mean, all of those things are quite, you know, hard to think about, but it's very hard to feel sorry for Michael. It just doesn't seem to make sense, because he is very tough in his ideas and in his determination. Our father, when he was alive, never really accepted the idea that we should treat Michael differently. And so, you know, we you know, in our family, we're a little competitive with each other, you know, because we're 5 kids, 4 boys. We're always sort of competing with each other, and really we just did the same to Michael, and I think that he also didn't want any different, and I think that he really doesn't think of himself as different because of his muscular dystrophy. I think he really expects to have the same kinds of experiences as other people do, And so he tries to get him as much as he can. And he doesn't consider it to be fair or reasonable that he should have a really different life from other people.
A1 to D1.
I just don't like the idea of giving up, and I just like to keep busy, keep doing what I can. When I was maybe in 6th or 7th grade, the doctors told me that I probably wouldn't live to be 20 years old, and I got a bit angry, and I wanted to give up. I didn't want to keep struggling and going to school. But my father told me that we never know what will happen in the future, and that I should just keep going to school and doing my best, and we would see what would happen.
Okay, I resign. Okay. That's it. I got lucky this time.